Welcome back to another CBB Talk. I'm Will Dickinson, and it's season 2 of the show podcast episodes. I don't know what I'm going to call this thing, but we're going to try to do it a little different this year. I took some time off. I wanted to do more off-season content, but busy, applying to schools. I'm playing a lot of golf, just doing a lot of things, and it's just hard to find time to do this. But I know it's the day of school today, and I tried to record it earlier, and I recorded the whole thing, and I didn't save the file. I'm a smart guy. I know. I'm a smart guy. But we're going to run it back for round 2, and I'm glad because I didn't love the first one. Came out anyways because it was a time where I thought I paused it and I didn't, and it was just not a great episode. But today, as you see the title, the top 25 teams in college basketball. I did this every day last year. We're going to be doing it again this year, updating it throughout the season, every day when games are being played. It will be updated. I'm excited for this. We're going to be trying doing something different, maybe not an exact schedule. We'll see how it works. If we're also going to do more shorter videos, or we're going to keep that same schedule we did last year, which I'm pretty sure I did Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that this year, but we're just going to see how it goes. So let's get into it. Some teams that just missed my top 25 are Wisconsin, UCLA, St. John's with Rick Pitino now, Maryland, and Colorado. All these teams either brought back a lot of big pieces, kind of like Wisconsin did. Colorado brought back some good pieces. Maryland brought back a lot of good pieces. Or have really good freshman classes. UCLA bringing a lot of interesting people. Also bringing back a Den bonus big. St. John's, pretty much a whole new roster. It's hard to judge them. I've seen people have them in the top 25. I had people have them way out of their top 25. I'm kind of in that. They're close for me because I like their roster, but they're not there yet. And Colorado has a 5-star freshman, really good roster. I think I have them finishing 4th in the Pac-12. Or 3rd. I think I actually have them 3rd above UCLA, so 3rd in the Pac-12. But let's get into that top 25. The meat of this thing, we're going to be starting at 25, going up to 1. I'm going to try not to talk too long about each team. Maybe a minute, maybe less. Depends on really my knowledge, because I'm honestly going straight off the dome with these teams. So starting at 25, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. This team was the number 1 overall seed last year in the NCAA tournament, but have lost a lot. Of course, Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, Javon Quinterly, Bediako. It's almost a new roster. They bring back Mark Sears. They get a transfer Grant Nelson, who I think is going to be transferred a year in this SEC. I believe I have him finishing 5th in the SEC, which I think is pretty fair. Natus is going to have an offense that shoots a lot of threes. And they also bring in a guy, Aaron Estrada, who is CAA Player of the Year. I like their backcourt. Him and Mark Sears. I think this Alabama team is going to be really good. Just they lost a lot of pieces, so it might be a slower start. They're going to have to start gelling because it's almost a brand new roster. 24, the Baylor Bears. This team I've seen it fluctuate a lot. Matt Norlander from CBS had him ranked 4th, which I think was pretty outrageous. I think I'm a little lower on them. I'm not sure how good Ray J. Dennis is going to be. Good name. Not sure how good of a player he's going to be. The transfer from Toledo, I believe. So he's going up. We'll see if he can adjust to Big 12 basketball. Losing LJ Cryer is big. Really good freshman, Jacoby Walters. I think he's going to be maybe the best freshman in the Big 12. He could be better than Keontae George was. And Everyday John's back. Scott Drew's going to have a good team, but I'm not sold on how good this team is going to be because last year, a second-round loss team, and I believe they got worse this year. So it's hard to, put a lot of faith in them on a team that was decent last year, but wasn't elite. 23 is a team I'm starting to like more and more. Illinois. Terrence Shannon's back. I think this dude's going to be an All-American. It's just tough. There's so many good guards in college basketball this year, but I think Terrence Shannon's on that short list of best guards. And Coleman Hawkins back, a really good big. Dane Danger there as a big. the rest of the roster will need to fill out and play good. But when you have a guy like Terrence Shannon, Coleman Hawkins, that's a great 1-2 punch. The Big Ten's a little weaker this year. I believe Illinois could contend there with the upper teams. I believe I only have 3 Big Ten teams ranked in my top 25. So they're the lowest at 3. 22, I had the St. Mary's Gales. We know Randy Bennett, one of the best coaches in college basketball, is going to get this team into the NCAA tournament. It's what they do. And they have their star player, Aiden Mahaney, a really good sophomore guard. After an amazing freshman season, I expect a jump from Aiden Mahaney to become maybe the West Coast Conference Player of the Year. I think he's that good. St. Mary's, of course, they're going to have a really good record in the conference. They're going to be able to beat Gonzaga because Gonzaga's not as good as they usually are this year. They're still going to be higher on my rankings. We'll get to them in a little bit. I think they beat Gonzaga last year. I believe they can beat them again this year, and they can contend for a WCC regular season championship. I got them at 22. This was a team that was tough to rank, but I believe they're going to be good. 21, a team that's back that missed the NCAA tournament last year. I have the Villanova Wildcats here at 21. Justin Moore is going to be fully healthy this year, and when he was fully healthy, he was one of the best players in the country. I believe he will be that again here for the Nova Wildcats. Brandon Armstrong, I expect a big jump from him coming from his freshman year. Eric Dixon's back. Just this team is going to be experienced. Another year with Kyle Neptune to figure out a system. Villanova basketball, I want to be back, and I think they can be back. I got them at the 21 spot. I believe that's 4th in the Big East. And the Big East is going to be fun this year. We got a lot of good teams more at the top of this list. But I think it's going to be another great conference. Last year was amazing. I expect to be amazing this year with St. John's going to be more interesting. And Villanova should be back into the NCAA tournament. And number 20, a team I'm a little down on, but I could see me being completely wrong on, is the Texas Longhorns, a team that was just really hard for me to rank because they've lost a lot. Marcus Carr, Timmy Allen, Christian Bishop. This team is lost a lot, and they have a lot of question marks. They bring in Max A. Smith, a guy who's proven to do it on the big stage, but not at a consistent level against amazing competition. Playing in the Summit League, going to the Big 12 is going to be a big jump for him. Tyrese Hunter is a guy who I think is going to be their best player, a guy that's been in the Big 12 his whole career. This is his second year at Texas, I believe. Started his career at Iowa State. He's going to be in there, ready for the big moments. I think that's a great 1-2 guard punch. They get Caden Cedric from Virginia, who I know a lot about, really good defender. Dylan DeSo's back, big defender. But I think this X factor on this Texas team is Dylan Mitchell. Again, a guy who shot no threes last year, a guy who was a 5-star coming out of high school. Coming into his sophomore year, we expect a big jump from him, not just on the offensive end, but on the defense end, he can be the X factor as well. If he becomes a player that can score the ball consistently, I believe this Texas team could contend to win a very tough Big 12. I think I have him finishing 3rd in the Big 12 this year. At 19, I have the UNC Tar Heels, a team that missed the tournament last year. They got better this year. Armando Bacon's back for his 5th season, the all-time leading rebounder in North Carolina basketball history is back, and along with his point guard, probably point guard this year, in RJ Davis. They lose Caleb Love, and that's good for the team. That's not mean Caleb Love is a bad player. We'll get to him in a moment. But UNC, in my opinion, it got better. Elliot Cadeau. I think he's going to be one of the best freshmen in college basketball. He's a shorter guard. Him and RJ in the backcourt. Both can play the point guard. Both can play off the ball. He's an explosive, good scoring guard. I really like. They've got a lot of good transfers. Hubert Davis, a big year for him after making the national championship, then missing the tournament. We need somewhere in the middle, hopefully. I mean, if they can get back to a national championship, obviously is the goal. But something in the tournament this year, hopefully a single-digit seed. I have him finishing 3rd in the ACC. At 18, I have the team that I have finishing 2nd in the Pac-12, the USC Trojans. I'm a little low on USC, and maybe that's because of the question marks with Bronny James and the rest of this roster behind a 2-headed monster at guards with Boogie Ellis and Isaiah Collier. We know what they can bring. Boogie Ellis has proven to do it at the major high level, high college basketball level, he's done it. He's been amazing. But Isaiah Collier, number one player in the class of 2023. I expect him to be a great player and maybe the best freshman in all of college basketball. But the rest of the roster is a little shaky, you have to admit. And that's why I'm a little skeptic on USC. If the rest of the roster can be consistent, if they can get Bronny James back to come off this bench, I like USC, and they definitely can win the Pac-12. At 17, I have Arizona, who I have winning the Pac-12 just over. Tommy Lloyd's done an amazing job. He's one of the best coaches ever in his first 2 years of his career. I literally think he might have the best win percentage ever in his first 2 years. Look, don't quote me on that, but I feel like I heard that stat before. He's done an amazing job bringing in Caleb Love. I think it's good. He got to change the scenery. I believe Caleb Love's a fine, amazing player. I think if he can just be more consistent and just shoot a little higher percentage or take less shots, I think he can fit in perfectly next to a guy like Killian Boswell, who I think is going to be a breakout player in his second year. They bring back Omar Ballo, a good big. I really like this Arizona team. They get good foreign transfers. They're getting players. I like Arizona, and Tommy Lloyd's a guy who I already can believe in that can win this Pac-12 like he did last year. At 16, I have the best team, or the second best team in the West Coast. I got the San Diego State Aztecs, the team that was the national runner-up last year. I have to put respect on them. They've lost a lot of players, but they bring in Reese Dixon Waters, a guy from USC who I believe is going to be able to take a step. It goes a little bit more down in competition. I think they can take a step. They're the best team in the Mountain West by a mile. And I have to put respect on what they're doing. Made the national championship last year, a great defensive roster. And yes, there's going to be a little bit of turnover, so maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But San Diego State's been a great program over the last 5-10 years, and I have trust in them to be back into the NCAA tournament, win the Mountain West, and have a high single-digit seed in the NCAA tournament. At 15, I have so that was 16 through 25. 15 to 10 here, I have a lot of SEC teams. I believe I have my top four SEC teams in this next 5 slots or 6 slots. So this was really hard for me. And my fourth SEC team and 15th overall, I have Texas A&M. Again, with A&M, it's just I feel like I might be a little low on A&M. It's just maybe it's because it's Texas A&M that I don't have them higher, and maybe that's just because of the name, the brand, and that's fair. But they probably had the best player in the SEC in Wade Taylor, who's an absolute bucket, a highlight reel waiting to happen, a great point guard, shooting guard. He can play 1 or 2. He's an amazing scorer, good defender. He's going to be electric. This whole Texas A&M team is going to be super, super good. And I do believe they will be one of the most fun teams. Buzz Williams has done an amazing job. They got really good last year, played against a hot Penn State team. They got screwed in that first round, ended up losing. But I do believe that Texas A&M can contend to win the SEC. I have them finishing 4th, but if they finish first, wouldn't surprise me. At 14, another SEC team. I have the Kentucky Wildcats. Again, this is back to I feel like this team is classic Kentucky basketball with a lot of good freshmen and 1 or 2 experienced players. I think that's going to be what Coach Cal's had a lot of success in his career. I think he's got back to that. I'm going to take a quick break and continue my Kentucky talks. All right, so back with Kentucky. I do have him finishing 14th. And that's because, look, they have the 5-star freshman, Justin Edwards, who I think might be the best freshman. If it's not Isaiah Collier, might be Justin Edwards. DJ Wagner, the guy who was formerly number 1 ranked in the class. He's going to be super, super good. Aaron Bradshaw's a good freshman. Reed Shepherd's a good freshman. This is classic Kentucky basketball back in the mid-2000s where I started loving college basketball was because of Kentucky had all these 5-star really good freshmen. I think they're back to that type of style. Antonio Reeves is going to be really good. Eric Matthews, is that his name? No, not Eric Matthews. Something Matthews from West Virginia transfer is big for Kentucky. I think I could see myself being low in Kentucky, but when you're so reliant on freshmen, it's just hard to be like, yeah, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country because what if the freshmen don't pan out on the high level? But I do like Kentucky. I got them fishing 3rd in the SEC, 14th overall. in my preseason rankings. 13, the best team from the West Coast. I have the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Yeah, they're not the most talented roster that Gonzaga's had over the last 5 years, but I believe in Mark Few and I believe in the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Look, they're consistently one of the best teams in the country. I don't care what you say. They've been a top 2 seed in the tournament the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, they're the epitome of consistent, winning 30-plus games. Yeah, they've lost Drew Timme. They've lost a lot, but bringing in Ryan Nembhard, I think, is just going to be big. His brother played at Gonzaga. Look, he was really good at Creighton. Bringing him in, Graham Ike, a guy who was preseason Mountain West Player of the Year before his injury. If he can get back to that level, he'll be a star there at Gonzaga. And they're going to play a hard non-con. I believe they're in Maui, so it won't be easy for Gonzaga. But once again, the conference play, look, they're probably going to win the WCC and get a high seed. St. Mary's is good competition there, but it's Gonzaga basketball, and I believe at the end of the season, they'll be around a top 10 team in the country. At 12, a team that last year I was a hater on, not a fan on, it's the Tennessee Volunteers. And look, Tennessee's a team that I never enjoy watching because they're usually not a high-powered offense. But this year, I think they can be better on offensively than last year. Of course, they have Santiago Vespi back for another year. And look, he's just a really, really good player. They beat Michigan State in that televised charity match without Vescovy or Zakai Ziegler. So it shows that they're not going to be too dependent on their guards. They have a lot of depth there. And Rick Barnes has done an amazing job there. Tennessee's always been a really good program over these last couple years. And this roster is, I think, a complete roster that's better than last year. I have them finishing barely second in the SEC. At number 11, I have the Miami Hurricanes, a team that made the Final Four last year for the first time in program history. Jim Larinaga has his team ready to try to compete for an ACC championship. Losing Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller it is a big loss. They are big losses, but returning Nigel Pack, North Chad Omier, Wugo Poplar, Harold Beverly, this team is ready to get back to that level that they were at last year. Maybe I could be overrating Miami. This is a team that I could see falling off maybe a little bit because of their losses of Isaiah Wong, who was my ACC Player of the Year. Was he the official? He might have even been the official ACC Player of the Year. I can't remember, but he was my ACC Player of the Year. Jordan Miller, a guy who was that second option for that team. I can get why people may be hesitant to rank Miami high. But look, they're bringing in Matthew Cleveland, a guy who was really good for Florida State. Miami's going to be really good. I have them finishing second in the ACC, and I think this team has a very high floor. A very high ceiling, but I think that floor is where they could sink, and maybe they are a top 25 team, but I want them, and I'm rooting for Jim Larinaga. And they got to the Final Four last year, so respect is on their name. At 10, a team that I'm really, 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 really high on is the Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that looks completely different from last year, but I like it. Last year, they had 3 5-star freshmen come in, and only one of them was really good, which was Anthony Black. The other ones were a little disappointing. This year, they're more reliant on transfers, and I like that more than relying on freshmen in today's age of college basketball. Ellis is a guy they brought in from Louisville. They just got a really deep team. Trayvon Brazile is back for this team, which I think he can be that number one option, a first-team All-SEC type player. And I'm excited to see Arkansas and Eric Musselman build this roster kind of from scratch, get these players together, and maybe it will result in a slow start. But I think by the end of the year, Arkansas can win the SEC. They beat Purdue in that scrimmage. I don't like to take those scrimmages super seriously, but Zach Edey did play, and in Bud Walton's almost an impossible place to win. Arkansas is my team that I believe in the most compared to a lot of other experts. So I got Arkansas ranked 10th and winning the SEC. It's a hot take, but either I'm going to look like an idiot or look like a genius, and I'm fine with either. At number 9, I have the Creighton Blue Jays. I got them finishing 3rd in the Big East. The Big East is a very tough conference this year. They do lose Ryan Nemhart. They replace him with Stephen Ashworth, I believe from Utah State, but it may be Nevada because I get those two confused for some reason because they have the exact same colors in the exact same conference. They bring back Baylor Scheinman, huge. Ryan Kalkbrenner, obviously one of the best players in the country, probably the second best player in the Big East. They're pretty much the same team without Arthur Kalumu. They have Trey Alexander, great player. So Greg McDermott's going to lead this team to compete in the Big East once again. A team that made the Elite Eight, had the most successful season in their program ever in the tournament last year, making the first Elite Eight. I like Creighton to try to run it back this year and compete for the Big East championship. At 8, I have the defending national champions, the UConn Huskies. They've lost a lot. They lost Jordan Hawkins. They lost Andre Jackson. They lost their Final Four MVP, Adama Sanogo. So it's tough to have them this high. It really is. But the thing about UConn is they proved it last year. They proved it last year, winning the national championship. So I have to, give them their respect. Donovan Klingon's a guy who everyone expects to take that next jump, as have I. I think he can be one of the best players in the country, one of the best players in the Big East, and compete for Big East Player of the Year. They brought in some transfers. They've lost some guys, but this team now knows what winning feels like, and they're going to want to get back to the top. And UConn, remember, they went through shaky parts of the season last year and ended up on top. So I expect them to kind of be the same, maybe not as good. That's why I got them at 8. 7. This is such a hard team to rank, but I have FAU at 7. I don't love it. I don't hate it. They just fell in my 7th slot. I couldn't put them with that upper echelon of teams, but they're still super high. It's just so hard to judge FAU, and now I'm looking on, maybe I'm too high on FAU, but they're bringing back their whole team. They're bringing back their whole team that made the Final Four and lost, was pretty much 1 second away from making the national championship, and they brought back everyone besides one player who came off the bench, Michael Foster. Elijah Martin's really good. John L. Davis is pretty good. Dusty May comes back to FAU. They're in a new conference. They have a really tough non-con schedule, so we're going to see early if FAU's the truth, or they are one-hit wonder. But when I recorded this for the first time, I compared them. One sec. I compared to those Wichita State teams when I was younger, back in the 2010s, when Wichita State was pretty good. They were like I can't remember what seed they were, like a 7-8, and they made the made the Final Four. The next year, they come back. They went undefeated and were the 1 seed, number 1 overall seed, and ended up losing the second round of Kentucky. I'm not saying that FAU is going to be the undefeated and win and be the number 1 overall seed, but I'm saying it's a very similar type of team that got really hot, had a really good season last year, got hot, made a Final Four. They bring back almost everyone. I'm not expecting them to be that good, but they could be. They could be. FAU is a super, super tough team to rank. My number 6, I have the Houston Cougars. They're moving to the Big 12. Is that going to be a hard jump for them? Yes. Do I think they're ready for it? Also, yes. They get a guy like LJ Cryer, who's used to playing Big 12 basketball, which I think is a huge advantage for them. He's just going to be their guy. Terrence Arsenault is really good. I know they lost Jermon Mark. Big loss. Lost Marcus Sasser. Big loss. By Jamal Shedd's back. He's very good. This team, Houston, Kelvin Sampson-led team, have been good. A number 1 seed last year. They made the Final Four in 2020. They've been a very, very good team. They're moving up to the Big 12, which could be a challenge for them, but I believe they're ready for it. Getting a guy like LJ Carr, I just think is so huge for this program, and I expect Houston to be back on top of the rankings this year and compete for a Big 12 championship in their first year. So here is my top 5. At number 5, the Marquette Golden Eagles. Shaka Smart is bringing back a team that won the Big East regular season and tournament with a team that won the national championship in that conference. Tyler Kulik, probably my favorite player in college basketball behind Reese Beekman. A guy who can runs the point, can pass, can play make, can score, can rebound. He does it all out there. He's just he's going to be one of the best players in college basketball. Was one of the most underrated players last year. Was your Big East Player of the Year. And I expect them to win it again. They bring back almost the whole same roster. My only worry is they did lose Omas Prosper. They didn't really go into the transfer portal at all. So if they can fill that hole of Omax, I expect Marquette to be in the top 5, a team that won the Big East last year. if they can fill that hole of Umax and be the same team, then they're going to be in the top 5. Number 4, the Michigan State Spartans have been finishing second in the Big Ten. This is probably my favorite team in college basketball behind my number 1. Tyson Walker's that dude. He's going to be their closer, going to be their guy. AJ Hogard, a guy who plays right next to him, is a clutch player, good playmaker, good defender. Jordan Atkins, a guy who was a freshman last year, is going to be a good shooter. Probably will go into that starting spot and play that 3-guard lineup. Malik Hall, a veteran guy. Matty Sissoko, veteran guy. And then Cohen Carr is an explosive athlete. Those dunks he had in that scrimmage against Tennessee was impressive. He's going to be an electric guy. Xavier Booker, I believe his name, 5-star freshman off the bench. It's going to be a deep team. It's going to be a fun team. And I want Michigan State to be back. I'm a big Tom Izzo guy, rooting for Michigan State this year. And they can win the Big Ten. Wouldn't be surprised if they do. But at 3, I have Purdue. And I don't. Here's the thing about Purdue. I have to put them 3. I have to give them respect. Am I the biggest Purdue fan in the world? God, no. But look, they have Zach Edey. He's the best player in college basketball. If you say otherwise, you're just a hater. And I'm not a big Zach Edey fan. I made fun of Purdue when they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. I made a TikTok on my phone trolling Purdue so hard, right? I did that. But they're bringing back the whole roster from a team that was a number 1 seed, that won the Big Ten tournament, that won the Big Ten in the regular season, and they're practically the same team. And we'll see what happened to Virginia. They lost to UMBC and won the national championship next year. Do I expect Purdue to win the national championship this year? No, but they definitely could. And if you told me, if a future me came in and said Purdue won the national championship, I wouldn't be surprised. Purdue's my 3. 2. So you know who my top 2 are, but I went different. Number 2, I have Kansas. Here's the thing about Kansas. You would be a fool to put Kansas low. You put a fool be Kansas outside the top 5 because it's Kansas basketball. It's the most consistent thing maybe on planet Earth. Besides, you know what? Me breathing and Kansas winning basketball games, it's probably more likely me stop breathing than Kansas stop winning basketball games. That's how common it is for Kansas to win. Bill Self is the best coach in college basketball. They get Hunter Dickinson, who, yes, is overrated. Hunter Dickinson is just my last name is Dickinson. I'm a big Dickinson guy. He's a little overrated, in my opinion. I still think he's like the 3rd best player in college basketball. I don't think Hunter Dickinson is the 3rd best player in college basketball. But look, this roster is really good. DeJuan Harris, probably the best pure point guard in college basketball. Kevin McCullough, Nick Timberlake transfer. KJ Adams now gets to play the 4, where I think he's more comfortable. This team is deep. They did lose Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson, their top 2 scorers, which for any team losing their top 2 scorers, that's not going to be easy. But it's Bill Self in Kansas, the most consistent thing in college basketball. But I can't put them number 1. I don't like their roster that much. My number 1 team is Duke. I don't see a lot of people putting Duke number 1, but I look at this Duke roster, and maybe it's because I'm in North Carolina, so I hear more about Duke. Maybe I'm a little biased towards that, but man, this roster is deep. It's talented. It's full of freshmen, transfers, experienced players, and that's what you need in a roster. One sec. So let me look at Duke's roster because I can just go off the dome. Like obviously Kyle Flipkowski is a guy who I expect to win Player of the Year. If it's not Zach Edey, he would be my guy to win it. He's that good. I just love the way he plays. Mark Mitchell's back. A guy who wasn't even a big factor in last year's team, who started games, who I expect he doesn't even need to score. But if he can be a good defender, rebounder, run the floor, Mark Mitchell's a guy who's only going to get better this year. My X factor for this team is obviously Tyrese Proctor, who I think can be a top 10 NBA talent, a top 10 pick, a guy who should be a freshman this year, reclassed up to be a freshman last year, and only got better as the year goes on. So I expect him to take a next jump and be a damn near All-American type player. That's how good I think Tyrese Proctor can be. If he can get a shot, he's a great playmaker, big guard. Jeremy Roach, a sure thing at point guard, shooting guard, wherever he's going to play. Jeremy Roach in his senior year, only expect him to get better. Christian Reed's a guy who looks like he might start at center for Duke. Looking at just watch some of that, Duke runs that blue versus white game. Duke, Christian Reeves look very good. And then you got the freshman and Jared McCain, TikTok star, big Jared McCain fan. Want him to do very well. I'm not sure if he's a one and done type player, but Jared McCain's really good. Jalen Blake's is on the team. Got Caleb Foster, amazing 5-star player, and then Sean Stewart, who's an athletic freak who broke Zion Williamson's vertical jump. Duke, I expect Duke to win the ACC easily. I expect Duke to be I don't know if I expect Duke. I mean, obviously I have them number one, but do I think Duke has to be number one? It's a bad season. No. John Shar, all these other coaches usually in my top 10 are sure thing coaches, maybe besides Dusty May, but John Shire, I believe in him as a coach. Duke's on top right now. They just got Cooper Flagg. Duke is killing it. I expect them to be, if not the best team, one of the best teams in college basketball this year. So here, I'll go my top 25, 1 to 25, and I'll sign it off. Number 1, Duke. 2, Kansas. 3, Purdue. 4, Michigan State. 5, Marquette. 6, Houston. 7, FAU. 8, UConn. 9, Creighton. 10, Arkansas. That's my top 10. Then I have 11, Miami. 12, Tennessee. 13, Gonzaga. 14, Kentucky. 15, Texas A&M. 16, San Diego State. 17, Arizona. 18, USC. 19, UNC. 20, Texas. That's my 11 through 20. And rounding out my top 25 is 21, Villanova. 22, St. Mary's. 23, Illinois. 24, Baylor. And 25, Alabama. So that's my top 25. I might drop a video later, either this week, next week. Players, so my most excited, 10 players, let's say, I'm most excited to watch. Underrated players, I don't know, but expect more content. Expect videos coming soon. Please say this video works, so hopefully you're seeing this. I'm glad to be back, and there's another episode of CBB Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.